Hey everyone. Okay, awesome. I don't think anyone's here yet, but we're starting to record, so some people will probably be watching this. Zoom always has it up close to my face, but then when I do like readings on like Skype and stuff, I'm so far away, so this is really strange. Mom! My mom's here, I think. Hi! Okay, it looks like I have to let people in, which is very strange. I think I did that by accident. So I'm just waiting for a few more people to pop in, and then we'll start talking. Hi, everyone. So it looks like I have to admit people like into the chat. I think I did that by accident, but if everyone wants to make sure they're muted, just in case, and then I'll start talking soon. I know a few people said they were gonna like hop on too, so I might just have to admit people as I go on talking, but I'll give people a few more minutes. I'm so happy people are showing up because I actually did like a live like this like almost a year ago now, and only one person came. And like at first I thought no one was gonna come, and this one person came, this guy, and I was talking about the moon, and like he didn't really ask me any questions afterwards. He was just kind of like, okay. And then he actually just unsubscribed from my from my newsletter today. So I'm like, what a funny coincidence. So hi, people joining. Just make sure you're muted, because I think I pressed wrong buttons where I have to admit everyone and then where I didn't mute everyone. So maybe I just read things wrong. But I'm gonna get started and then I'll admit people as they pop in. Oh, I guess it's still only 7. That was only a minute. But so I was also saying that I think it's funny because Zoom makes like my face really up close. So hope I'm not scaring anyone. Where like other readings I do through video chat, like I'm so far away. So I was kind of surprised. So yay, welcome to my astrology Mercury Retrograde workshop. So I have everything I want to say written down, but feel free to like pop in questions in the chat. And if I don't get to them, I'll definitely get them on my Instagram. I'll answer them because I do only have 30 minutes of like the recording to do. So it might cut us off after 40 minutes, but I have a little timer. So I'll let everyone know when I'm wrapping things up. So Mercury, so it goes into retrograde on Tuesday, like later Tuesday. So Tuesday, Wednesday is kind of like those first few days of retrograde where you'll see everyone on Instagram like posting about it. But I really wanted to talk about Mercury and what Mercury retrograde really means, because a lot of people kind of don't get it wrong, but are more just like scared of it, and then talk about like the bad aspects of Mercury retrograde. So a little bit about Mercury first. Mercury in astrology is the planet of communication. So it is commonly known as that. Like that's basically what you'll hear right off the bat, is that it's the planet of communication. Mercury in mythology was the messenger to the gods. Hermes was his other name. So that's kind of everyone's basic knowledge of him, or Mercury energy. And so it's really funny that people see it that way, because Mercury actually rules the signs Gemini and Leo and Virgo, and those rule the 3rd and the 6th house. So this kind of opens us up to a greater understanding of Mercury and what it really controls and what its energy is like, because the 3rd house rules communication, but also our creativity and our mental mind, like how we communicate our ideas and how we present them. So that's interesting. That's one kind of big aspect. And then the other one is the 6th house, which represents health and routine and our acts of service. So a lot of people, me included, I was never really considering Mercury in terms of health, routine, and service, which is so weird. So it kind of combines all those things together in terms of how we creatively go about our ways of service. If you are like doing something creative to help others, or communicating in that act of service, like things can kind of, it helps us understand how we go about those things, and like our connection to our routine and everything like that. So talking about just Mercury and basic astrology, where your Mercury, sorry, I'm just putting my hair up so I stop playing with it, because I know my mom who's watching this is probably like, Sarah, stop playing with your hair. Anyways, so Mercury in your chart, where it is, can help us identify how we do these things, how we communicate, what way of communication feels good to us, where we may be a little bit more willing to present ourselves, and where our creativity comes from. But it also represents this idea of how we think and how we, like, how ideas might start coming up in our mind, which is really interesting. So where it is, that's kind of where it is in your astrology chart. And if anyone kind of got one of my emails before, you might have went in to get your natal Mercury placement. So let me know if you have that. My natal Mercury is in Leo, and or the sign isn't as important as the house it's in. So my natal Mercury is in the 6th house. So I often kind of get that I flow with ideas when I'm in that 6th house energy of routine and health and working with other people. Anyways. So Mercury in your chart can give you that idea of how you work with communicating and where your creativity kind of comes from. For example, oh, perfect. Yeah, awesome. So for example, if your Mercury was in like Aries, you might be a bit more willing to start conversations, wanting to kind of like really go and get like excited about things, and be a leader in it and start new projects and stuff like that. But yeah, Sarah, my name's Sarah too. Hey, you probably need that. Your natal Mercury in Gemini is really cool, because then you're kind of really in tune to this idea of being a really good communicator, being very kind of like have a method to your communication, but also at the same time just being so confident that it comes easy to you, and wanting to use all the knowledge you have to kind of communicate, which is really awesome. So you might kind of thrive, because it's in your 11th house, you might thrive on that communication when you are in social situations, or where you're communicating like your dreams and kind of like discussing bigger picture stuff with your friends. That's kind of what the 11th house kind of shows. But then another thing with Mercury, before I get to Mercury retrograde, we also discuss, as astrologers, we discuss Mercury in transit. So when Mercury moves, as you know, like Mercury is going to go retrograde, so everyone talks about where it is in the current astrological climate. So when it moves into certain signs, we can get a general idea of how people are going to be communicating during its 3-ish week time in that sign. So that's also important. Like if Mercury in general was in Aries, a lot of people would probably be starting new projects, maybe starting to talk to new people and putting themselves out there a little bit more in terms of their creative projects or routines, like starting new health routines and stuff like that. It's a really exciting time. But Mercury is not in Aries. It's going into Pisces today, or in 3 weeks. Or no, it's actually at 0 degrees Pisces right now. Anyways, and that's where it's going to be in retrograde. So now we're going to talk about that. So I hope that all made sense to people. And we can go over Mercury in your own chart as well later. But yeah, so Mercury retrograde. First off, I wanted to say this at the beginning, but everything is in Pisces right now. So Mercury's in Pisces. We're going to have the new moon in Pisces. The sun's in Pisces, and Neptune has been in Pisces for a while. So during this time, building up to this time even, you might have felt really emotional, like either happy emotions too, like you might have been able to be like really joyful, like out of nowhere, or like random tears just start coming and flowing, and that's okay because it's Pisces season. And that's kind of what happens. But because Mercury and the moon are also in Pisces, It's just a lot. So like, I mean, today I just cried randomly because my boyfriend sent me a song that was really nice. And I just was like, that's so random. And I started crying. So stuff like that, like, and also maybe getting anxiety attacks. Sometimes it's not a really comfortable feeling with Pisces. And that's because Pisces as a sign, so the major energy that we're getting with these big planets is Pisces energy, which is Pisces as the last zodiac sign encompasses all of the energy of the signs in the zodiac. So it can be very confusing, especially for other people's personal astrology. If they have no Pisces in their chart, they're going to feel really uncomfortable with it because Pisces encompasses all those energies and kind of makes peace with them and is ready to move on, ready to let go. And I'm getting into that, Mom. And ready to let go and ready to like experience that kind of discomfort and like be okay with those kind of spiritual elements of like moving on to new phases in your life because it's the last zodiac sign, being okay with your emotions because it's a water sign. So there's a lot of kind of heavy energy coming up and everything being in Pisces. Now what retrograde means, so retrograde means moving backwards, okay? But planets don't actually move backwards. So that's another thing. That's an important thing that I'm going to get to. But because Mercury, so everything doesn't move in a circular orbit. It moves in an elliptical orbit, which means it's like a oval. So in relation to the Earth's orbit, Mercury looks like it's moving backwards. So in relation to Earth, it's going backwards. So that means in relation to us, it's going backwards. But really, it's moving just a bit slower because it's on this certain part of its elliptical cycle. But everything that has to do in astrology is in relation to us here on Earth. So that's why it is called retrograde, and we discuss it as if it's moving backwards because it visually is and mathematically is. Like the degrees are different in relation to Earth, if that makes sense. So why that's so important, I wrote a little like thing about what I was going to say, and I actually wrote about my mom, but she's on, so I might not say all that stuff. So retrograde, everyone commonly sees Mercury retrograde as a disruption in communications and travel. And this is where I wrote about my mom because she's a traveler and her Mercury is in her 9th house of travel. So I always associated it with just basically like miscommunications and interrupted travel. So before I was even an astrologer, I had this vision in mind that describes Mercury retrograde perfectly, where you're kind of like waiting for a flight or like you're making plans and they get canceled and you have to wait. You have to wait for that, wait for your flight to be okay for you to get from point A to point B. And you can be frustrated because you're sitting at the airport having no idea when you're going to get there. And that's Mercury retrograde. And that's literally, we're kind of all in this funny little cosmic airport waiting for our flight to take off because we may feel like our flight got canceled. It might actually get canceled. Or we may feel like we're moving backward, like obstacles come up that make us feel like we aren't properly moving forward or moving forward fast enough. And that's just the kind of stuff that comes up in Mercury retrograde. But why? Like a lot of people are probably like, well, I thought you said Mercury retrograde isn't all about bad stuff, and it's not. So like going off of that airport example, because I think I found myself in an airport during Mercury retrograde and my flight got canceled and all that. And this is kind of when I started getting really into astrology. And then I sat there and I was thinking, I don't actually have to be upset that my flight got canceled. That's just what everyone does. That's kind of what we're pathologically programmed to do, is when we get obstacles, we fight against it. We get angry and we like think about all the things that could have went right, like what it's keeping us from. And that's the lesson of Mercury retrograde, is to catch yourself in those moments where you're like, I don't actually have to be angry. I don't actually have to be upset about these things. I can just be comfortable sitting in this airport and taking the time to read my book, to write my paper, to have more time with my family or something like that. So whenever you experience during the Mercury retrograde cycle, it ends March 28th. So if you catch yourself in these Mercury retrograde-like experiences, whatever they may be to you, sometimes it's just like your coworker pissing you off, or you feeling like you didn't write a newsletter or a email the way you should have. You can be like, actually, is this the end of the world? Is this really how I feel, or is it because I normally react this way? And kind of catching yourself in those moments, because ultimately what Mercury retrogrades do is they make these moments so much more prominent and so much more like in your head, where you have to notice it, so then you can work your way out of it and identify where you are kind of overreacting, or where your mind's getting the best of you. And it can work itself into, like, most obviously, ways of communications are thoughts, way we talk to ourselves, which is kind of like a big Mercury thing, but also in terms of our daily routine and how we serve others and connect with others, the sixth house, like I was saying earlier. And what makes this Mercury retrograde so important? Oh my God. Oh yeah. My mom was just sharing an experience she had. She met Alan Doyle, a famous Canadian singer, when she was delayed at the airport. So everything happens for a reason. It's kind of like that energy. So with Mercury retrograde this time around, why I'm emphasizing this idea of mindsets and the ability we have to let go of them, or the reason why this Mercury retrograde is going to be so important to bring up those mindsets and for us to acknowledge them, is because Neptune is also in Pisces. And I was talking about this a lot on my Instagram, where Neptune is the planet of illusion. It's not necessarily super Piscean. It's actually the ruler of Aquarius, but it really kind of messes us up in Pisces, because Pisces is a water sign and we can get really emotional. So with Neptune and its influence at this time, we may be more aware of illusions that we've created for ourselves, things that are all in our head, our anxieties, our like self-conscious stuff. That can come up, and this is a really great opportunity for us to start working against those mindsets and start starting to acknowledge them and kind of start chipping away at them and making them not as big, and working a way to break those patterns and break through those limiting beliefs, the beliefs that keep us from being our authentic selves and from being our more productive selves, even getting us on our right path. There's a lot of kind of beliefs that'll come up that you get to catch yourself in and say, oh, this isn't something that I actually believe, or this is something that isn't serving me. How can I work with it? So I think that's most of what I wrote for Mercury retrograde, but I have a few reflection questions that I'm going to share in the email that I'm going to send out tomorrow. I'm just so I don't spam everyone's inboxes with emails, but where there's just reflection questions like, how do you communicate with others, and how do you creatively express yourself at this moment? And then how do you want to communicate? How do you want to creatively express yourself? Are they the same thing? Because then we kind of open ourselves up to acknowledging where that pathological mindset might be. And pathology means beliefs that we've been conditioned to believe through our experience in society, like what the world has put on us, the media, or relationships with our parents or our friends, other habits that we've just gotten from people in our lives and in our past that maybe made us believe something or made us act a certain way, when really we don't have to act that way, and we can kind of rise above it. So really what Mercury retrogrades are and why I love them, why I call it a Mercury retrograde party, is because they're really opportunities to kind of get more positive and coach ourselves out of these bad mindsets and work with our own habits and patterns that we really don't want to have anymore. So another reason astrologically why this Mercury retrograde emphasizes all of this breaking patterns and new beginnings is because it comes at the new moon, And it also comes when Uranus enters Taurus. So new moons represent, I know this is a lot of information, so if you need me to answer anything, like if you have any more questions or want clarifications, just let me know. So at this time, because it's the new moon, which represents new beginnings and a new cycle, and Uranus shifting into another sign, Uranus is the planet of change and growth and like sudden changes, like really big kind of like, oh, you're in a new cycle. So that's really cool that that comes at the same time, especially because the new moon being in Pisces, Pisces being the last sign of the zodiac and representing that kind of like end of a cycle. And then next month is an official new zodiac year with like the spring equinox happening a few weeks before and stuff like that. It really represents this period of ending our cycles and kind of tying things up, realizing and thinking about what we want our new cycle to be, if that makes sense. So another big thing is because of all this energy, it's a really important time for us to take care of ourselves. So what I realized, what my Mercury retrograde trouble is going to be, is that I have a jam-packed schedule the next few weeks. And that can throw me off because my natal Mercury is in my 6th house. So I got to just kind of watch my mood and make sure I schedule in time to be alone. So, and that kind of goes for everyone. Like that's a general good tip to have during the Mercury retrograde. But depending on where it is in your chart, you might feel more energetic and be able to tackle more tasks during Mercury retrograde. So just really pay attention to how you're feeling, because sometimes if someone's telling you to slow down and you don't feel like you need to, but then again, feelings are different than your thoughts. Like you might be like, no, I want to go. But like, make sure you sit with yourself and really kind of get clear with if it's a feeling or if it's your thought process is wanting you to go, and to not burn yourself out. Because everything's in Pisces, another good tip is to drink lots of water. So that's important. If anyone wants to pop in their signs, I am like going to go through how this Mercury retrograde will like affect those signs. Yeah, probably. If your Mercury's in your 11th house, because it's in Gemini, sometimes it can be good for Geminis because like you are very Mercurian, if that's a word. But at the same time, you might burn yourself out. It definitely does depend on other like points in your chart and how you feel. So you just need to make sure you connect with kind of how you're feeling about things. Because the 11th house is a house that like loves to dream and loves to kind of be revolutionary and like thrives off this change. So with the Uranus kind of being in there, it could be a really fun time for you. But there is just a little bit of a warning to take care of yourself, because you could overload yourself on that Mercury energy, because the 11th house is a bit like, it's nearing the end of a cycle, right? So sometimes when you are that close to the end, you might want to go so fast, and that might not be the best idea. I hope that made sense. So definitely just like the tip with Mercury in your 11th house right now is to slow down, but give me your sign, like your sun sign or your moon sign too, and I'll kind of go over that. But okay, yay, I'm happy. So Mercury is in Libra in your 9th house, and Renee, I'm doing your reading soon too, so that's gonna be awesome. So if your Mercury is in the 9th house, this could be a really fun time for that too, because the 9th house loves big picture stuff and planning and adventure. So, and like personal development. So this is a really great time, the Mercury retrograde, for you to dig into ways that you can work with your mindset and adjust those things. So the 9th house is a really great kind of time for that. But with it being in Libra, your natal Mercury, you might want to make sure you're comfortable the whole time. Like treat yourself to like a Starbucks every Monday during the retrograde or something. Like make sure you feel treated well. So then you're like, I'm doing like self-care practices this week, because things could get overwhelming when you're thinking about all these big stuff, and you want to make sure that you're like comforted, because Libra is that sign that likes comfort and balance. So that's kind of what that's going to come up with for you. Oh, okay, looks like we have a few Geminis. Okay, awesome. So, so with the Gemini horoscopes, for Mercury and retrograde, and this is kind of interesting because it's going to talk about like your the new moon as well is going to tie into this, but it's going to be in your career house, which is interesting actually. So because, like I kind of said before, because Geminis are ruled by Mercury, it could be that time of like really exciting. So Mercury retrograde lasts 3 weeks, like around 3 weeks each time, and because it moves the fastest, that's why. So so when the Earth crosses its path at a certain time, but the Earth's moving faster, like, and our orbits just aren't the same size. That's why we get Mercury retrogrades four times a year. Yeah. But for Geminis, there's that kind of energy overall of like just checking in, because it could be either really daunting for you, depending on your other signs, or really exciting and welcoming because you're home in this Mercurian energy. Because it's a really good time to work with self-expression, because Mercury is one of your ruling planets, Geminis, and self-acknowledgement. But with everything in Pisces, it's really centered in on your public life and career. So getting clear with where you want to go. So things might come up where you're like, oh, this makes me not like my job, or this like makes me want to do this and present myself in a new way, or start selling something, or start working like a different public life thing, like getting involved in communities or something like that, and being seen a bit more might be coming up for Geminis, or working through your patterns with work and working through your patterns with that idea of being in the public. So what I kind of channeled when I wrote the horoscopes was, how are you kind of creating a vision for that kind of career life area? And Mercury retrograde will bring up those kind of challenges in order for Gemini energy to get a bit more clear on a vision that they have, rather than being kind of stuck in a career or in a scenario in their public life. Like maybe if you have no public life, you might want to start showing yourself a bit more, or something like that, is kind of what I wrote for Pisces, because that's and all my written stuff is what I'll send to you guys tomorrow, but that's kind of a lot of what's coming up for Pisces. For Geminis during the Pisces season is a big focus on the 10th house. And the 10th house is ruled by Capricorn. So Sarah, you might be feeling that a little bit more. Capricorns are also getting hit in the not the 12th house, in the communication zone, and yeah, so like having more opportunities to express yourself differently, which ties really nicely into that 10th house with your Capricorn moon, which is really cool. And then the Leo rising. Okay, awesome. So another Capricorn. So I'll elaborate a little bit more. So if your Capricorn rising is again, like a really important time for you to reconsider how you want to present yourself, to yourself as well, like self-communication, but in all kind of facets of your life. How are you bringing out your creativity? How are you allowing yourself to be heard? But also, how are you listening to other people? Because Capricorns have been through a time, and I find that a Capricorn energy, oh yeah, Renee, I looked at your chart. I think you have, I might be getting it confused with someone else, but Capricorn energy has been going through a time right now. So you might have been feeling a lot of tension, and that can often be harmonized by making sure you're also receiving information properly. Like, are you listening to the advice that other people are giving you? Are you listening to your intuition, or your kind of connection with spiritual stuff, with God, with the universe? Are you listening? And are you communicating properly? Because if you don't communicate and if you don't listen, like, something's going to get lost in translation and you're not going to feel that balance. So Pisces season and the Mercury retrograde, which lasts the rest of Pisces season, is bringing that new communication zones up for Capricorn. And then for your Leo moon or Leo rising, Sarah, I'm a Leo too. there may be some twists and turns emotionally. That's what I said. Because Pisces is hitting your 8th house, and that's this house of transformation. That's my like basic stamp that I put on the 8th house, because I think it's so important to consider it as that. But the more basic energies of it is like sexual nature and money. So like those may be things that kind of are segued into this idea of personal transformation and you noticing things. So notice if any of those kind of topics do come up. But overall, with the 8th house energy, it's a really good time for you to start getting a little bit more reflective and in tune with your own cycles and how you are developing right now. So I wrote like it's a really great time to get a little journal and like make that little balance between those spiritual changes and those changes you're making productively, like with money, like starting a financial kind of budget, like I am. You're welcome, Mom. I'm doing that. And or cutting off people. So, oh hey, they've removed my 40-minute limit, so I don't have to worry about going over. But yeah. So I hope that was helpful. Does anyone have any other questions, or did I not get to someone's sign? Because I can go through that again. But I will be sending out this email to kind of go in, or just for you guys to have and reflect on throughout Mercury retrograde, to be like, okay, this is where I'm like getting. Yeah. So it could be a really nice rest with that kind of energy, as long as because you're kind of given this opportunity to reinvent yourself in a way with that Capricorn, Gemini, and Leo energy, Sarah. So you're probably able to. It's definitely a time to reflect and not be ashamed of like maybe getting a little bit more quiet. No problem, Mom. Love you too. So if no one else has any questions, I think Renee, I got to your Capricorn. And well, with Libra being your home zone for Mercury retrograde is hitting Libra's daily health and routine stuff, so that could be showing up for you, but more so it would be hitting where your Libra is, and you said it was in the what was it, the 9th house, right? So it's probably a little bit different. But if you're really feeling that Libra energy, it could be kind of through adjustments in your daily routine and like connections with others and serving others, that it could show up for you as well, and starting to kind of tune into that, tuning into where you might have a little lack of balance between your routine and other things in your life. Yeah, but I do have a treat for people who are going to watch this recording, and for you guys, if you purchase so Renee, you can totally use this even in a few months after your initial reading, but the little checkups I have, it's called Astro Checkup. If you purchase that and use the coupon Pisces, it's 30% off, and we can use that just to go through kind of the general energies a little bit more in depth in relation to the whole of your natal chart. I think with 30% off, it comes to like $21 or something like that. And it's like a 30-minute session. You can also get it recorded if you want, instead of one-on-one with me. But yeah, that's a little offering I have. So the code Pisces in those two recorded ones, or recorded Astro Checkup or normal Astro Checkup, is an option. I think that's all I had to say. Actually, no, it's not. I had written something else down from Chani Nichols. I just got a email from her, and I just really liked how she described Uranus entering Taurus, because that's something like coming in for us too, where it's going to be an innovative, or a way to innovate our relationship with, well, yeah, I'll just summarize it, with the earth, and with connecting to how we kind of treat the earth, but also treat our relationship to our resources. So that could come up for some people too, especially Renee with that 6th house in Libra kind of thing going on. That could come up as well. It will come up for everyone in some way. It might just not be as mercurial. And then yeah, that is actually all I wrote. So if no one has any questions, I'll log off, but feel free to message me on Instagram with any questions that do come up, and I will answer them on my story. So So yeah, I hope that was helpful, everyone. And in the email I send out, I will, no problem. I'll send a little, I'll also put those reflection questions in there so you can kind of use them throughout Mercury retrograde and kind of see what's up and what's happening in terms of like ways of catching you in mindsets or stuff like that. Yeah, me too, Renee. Oh, thanks, guys. I'm happy it was helpful. Yay, and thanks for showing up. I shared at the beginning that like one time I did this and only one person showed up and didn't talk. So, so thank you. I'll talk to you all later. Bye.